My father cut me out of his will, so I got revenge. I always thought my dad loved me. He was never the emotional type and ever said, "I love you." Never hugged me growing up, but I told myself that was just who he was. Old school. Stoic. He showed his care in other ways. Fixing my car without asking, paying off my first semester of college, quietly sliding me $50 when I was struggling with rent. So when he died, I wasn't expecting a big inheritance or some dramatic letter confessing hidden affection, but I never expected this either. I was 27 when he passed a sudden heart attack, gone in an afternoon. It happened at work, at the construction company he had built from scratch over 35 years. He'd always been proud of Thaddeus to say, "I came to this country with nothing, and I built something worth remembering." I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, hands clenched, trying to prepare myself for whatever was in that will. My mom was gone already, car accident years ago, so it was just me, my older half-brother Mark, and the lawyer. Mark sat across from me with that smug look he always had. He had Dad's build, Dad's face, but none of his fire. Mark hadn't lifted a finger to help Dad run the business for the last 10 years. Hell, he didn't even live in the same state until 6 months ago. He'd been a wall for most of his life. The lawyer opened the will, and that's when I felt the world tilt. To my son Mark, I leave full ownership of my company, Redstone Construction, along with all associated assets and accounts. To my son, my name, I leave the house and personal belongings therein. I trust he will make good use of it. That was it. No money, no company. Just the damn house and aging 2-bedroom in the suburbs that still smelled like sawdust and coffee. I remember blinking at the paper, rereading it twice, then looking up and catching Mark's smirk. That slow, oily smile like he just won a jackpot. I asked the lawyer if there had been a mistake. He shook his head, said Dad had changed the will 2 months ago. No explanation, just updated paperwork. Mark had been living with Dad those last few months, taking care of him, allegedly. I left that office shaking. Not crying, just shaking. I went home, poured 3 fingers of bourbon, and sat in silence. Then I got mad, really mad. Dad cut me out like I meant nothing. After all those years working for him, cleaning up after his damn messes, running job sites when he was too drunk or tired or sick. I put my life on hold for him, and now I had nothing to show for it. But I wasn't going to let it slide. Mark thought he'd won. He had no idea who he was messing with. For days I didn't sleep much. I was too busy digging. I wanted to believe there was some logical explanation. Maybe Dad was coerced. Maybe Mark guilt-tripped him. Maybe he was sick, not thinking clearly. But none of it made sense. And when things don't make sense, there's usually a reason one someone wants to keep hidden. So I started looking. First, I checked the house. Dad's home office was untouched, same piles of receipts, old invoices, and dusty hard drives. I found his old laptop, fired it up, and started poking around. Most of it was boring tax documents, email chains with contractors, spam. But then I hit a folder labeled Redstone Internal, password protected. It took me 2 days and some brute force guessing, but I finally cracked it. Marco 979. Inside were PDFs, hundreds, ledger sheets, scanned contracts, emails between Dad and their accountant. And that's where it got interesting, because about 3 months before Dad died, someone had started pulling money from company accounts, large transfers to personal savings accounts. Not Dad's, Mark's. Tens of thousands, then hundreds. I kept reading and found flagged entries, payments for non-existent projects, materials never ordered, subcontractors with names like J. Smith LEC that didn't exist. It was a shell game. Mark was robbing Dad blind. I printed everything. Then I found the emails. At first, they were cordial. Dad asking Mark about a missing invoice or a payment that looked off. Then frustration. Then anger. One stood out. From Dad's email to Mark, I know what you're doing. I don't care how bad things got in Florida. If I catch you stealing from me again, you're out. Out of the house, out of the business, out of the will. One more screw up and it's over. Dated exactly 12 days before the will was updated. So that's why Mark came back. He wasn't taking care of Dad. He was covering his own ass. And he did it fast. He somehow got Dad to change the will before Dad could follow through with his threat. I don't know how, but I knew one thing: he stole what was supposed to be mine. And now, I was going to take it back. I started small. I called the IRS fraud hotline. gave them an anonymous tip about embezzlement and tax evasion at Redstone Construction, sent them copies of the ledgers and flagged files. A week later, I heard a rumor that Redstone had been hit with an audit. Mark posted on Facebook about government overreach. I smiled. Then I visited a friend from college, Carrie. She worked at a local investigative podcast, did true crime episodes on small-town scandals. I gave her a sanitized version of the story. Told her she could use the material if she kept my name out of it. She ran with it. Episode title: Blood and Concrete. The secret scandal behind a family construction empire. It went mildly viral. Local press picked it up. Suddenly, Mark wasn't just sweating the IRS, he was fielding calls from angry clients, suppliers, and old partners, wondering what the hell was going on. Then came the final step, the lawsuit. See, that house Dad left me? It wasn't just where I grew up, it was the original office of Redstone Construction. Technically, it was listed as company property up until 3 years ago. Then Dad moved ownership to his name and left it to me. But Mark, in his stupidity, had still been using the address for tax purposes. He claimed it as a business asset, filed deductions, mailed client contracts with the house's address as the HQ. That was fraud. Easy to prove. And now I owned the building. So I hired a lawyer. Not to sue for the company, I'd never get that back. But I sued for damages, defamation, and illegal business use of private property. It dragged on for months. And during those months, I kept feeding tips to every reporter, tax investigator, and podcast producer who'd listen. Mark's Golden Castle? Crumbling. One day, I got a voicemail. You're a real piece of work. You know that? You think Dad would be proud of you. You just want attention like always. You were never the son he wanted. Click. I played that message on repeat, and then I smiled, because Mark was losing, and I wasn't done yet. I didn't even need to touch him anymore. Mark was unraveling all on his own. The podcast episode had snowballed into a full local news expose. They aired B-roll of the Redstone Construction sign getting taken down, an interview with a supplier who'd been stiffed for $15,000. And even a retired employee who claimed Mark had cut corner and lied on safety reports. He was bleeding clients. Even his LinkedIn quietly changed from CEO of Redstone Construction to consultant. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I wanted to see him squirm, not just lose money. I wanted him to feel what I felt when I found out Dad had signed me away like I didn't matter. I wanted him paranoid, isolated, watching the walls close in. So, I turned up the heat. There was a bar Mark used to frequent, this pretentious whiskey place where he always had some meeting or another. I waited a few nights. Eventually, he showed up. Slouched shoulders, tired eyes, but still dressed like he owned the world. He sat down in a booth, alone. I paid the bartender $50 to drop an envelope at his table, plain white, with no return address. Inside, a single copy of Dad's email, the one where he threatened to cut Mark out of the will. And on the back I scribbled, "Funny how fast Dad changed his mind. Or did you help him?" I watched from the parking lot as Mark opened it. He turned pale, then red. Then he stormed out, calling someone on his phone. I didn't need to know what he said. I just wanted him off balance. A week later, the audit results came in. Redstone was slapped with a 6-figure penalty for unreported income and falsified deductions. Mark blamed the accountant, fired him, of course. But it didn't help. The firm was dead in the water. Its credit line was pulled. Then, finally, the lawsuit wrapped. Mark settled. Quietly. Paid damages. Signed a public apology saying he'd mistakenly used a residential property for business without permission. His lawyer tried to bury it, but I leaked it to the press. And just like that, the Reddit post that started it all, my original rant, was updated. Update. Mark settled. His company's folding. He left town. Guess karma's got a hard hat too. It blew up. Front page of E-Pro Revenge. Thousands of upvotes. People DMing me. "You're a legend. Your dad would be proud. This is better than any Netflix drama." But none of it fixed what hurt most. Because through all of this, the schemes, the wins, the slow destruction of the man who stole from me, I never got the one answer I truly needed. Why did Dad change the will? Then, one night, I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. Susan Carter. She said she'd worked as Dad's nurse during his last 3 months. Mark had arranged for her to do night shifts. She wasn't involved in anything shady, but she'd seen things and thought I should know. We met at a diner the next evening. She was in her late 40s, soft-spoken and clearly nervous. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, she said, hands around her coffee cup. But your father, he wasn't himself at the end. There were meds. A lot of them. What kind of meds? Benzodiazepines diet. High doses. For anxiety, supposedly. But he never had anxiety before. And who gave them to him? She hesitated. Mark brought them. Said they were doctor approved. But I never saw the prescriptions. I felt my stomach drop. What was Dad like near the end? Confused. Sleepy. Sometimes he didn't recognize me. He was lucid maybe an hour a day. But the day the lawyer came, he was totally out of it. I remember because Mark sent me home early. Said he'd handle it. She looked at me, eyes wide. That was the night the will changed, wasn't it? I went home and stared at the ceiling. Mark hadn't just robbed my inheritance. He'd drugged our father. Maybe not to kill him, but definitely to manipulate him. Maybe Dad didn't even know what he was signing. Maybe he thought it was something else. Maybe he tried to fight it and just couldn't. And I hadn't been there, because I'd trusted Mark. There's no criminal case, no forensic proof. Susan won't testify. She's scared, and I don't blame her. And Dad's long gone now. His grave is just a cold patch of stone on a hill that doesn't answer back. But I know the truth, and so does Mark. And that's why, a few weeks later, I sent him one last thing. A single envelope. Inside was a photo of Dad, the one we took on his last good birthday. He's smiling. I'm next to him. Mark's not in the frame. On the back, I wrote, he remembered who mattered. Even if you made him forget. No return address. No signature. Just closure. After the final letter, I thought I'd feel satisfied. Maybe even free. Instead, I just felt tired. I stopped checking the Reddit post. Ignored DMs. I didn't need praise or karma points anymore. The war was over and I'd won. But all it did was leave a quiet hole where the anger used to be. That's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It's not a clean victory. It's messy. And once you've burned down someone's house, you're still standing in ashes. Mark disappeared from our town. Rumor had it he was in Florida, staying with some old college friend while trying to rebuild. He deleted his socials. Redstone's website was gone. I even tried calling his old number once out of morbid curiosity, but it was disconnected. He left behind debt, lawsuits, and a bad reputation, and a family name no one respected anymore. I went back to my normal job, a quiet marketing gig in the city. Sat through meetings, wrote reports, tried to convince myself that life could resume. But something stuck in my chest like a splinter. Not guilt, not even regret, just emptiness. Then, out of nowhere, a new email. Subject: he told me the truth. From Norpley Burneron. 134protonmail.com. There was no greeting, just one sentence. Dad found out what Mark did 3 days before he died and he cried. No signature, no context, but I knew it had to be real. Only one person could have written it. Mark. I don't know why he sent it. Maybe it was a final confession. Maybe it was an attempt at closure or cruelty. Maybe he wanted me to feel worse. To bear some of the weight. But the effect was different, because for the first time in months, I cried. Not from rage or frustration or bitterness, but from finally understanding that, in the end, Dad had come back. Even for a moment. Even broken, drugged and dying, he'd realized that Mark had lied. That I wasn't the disappointment he was told. That I was still his son. I visited the cemetery that weekend. It was cold, gray, and the wind howled through the bare trees. No one else was there. Just me, a black coat, and a thermos of Dad's favorite black coffee. I sat next to the grave. I got justice, I told the stone. Not through lawyers or courts, but my own way. Silence. Then, like a whisper, you always did it your own way. I imagined him there. Not old and sick, but young and sharp, the Dad I remembered from childhood. The one who taught me to fix a sink. The one who told me, don't ever let someone take what's yours. And then, I let go. A few months passed. The Reddit thread finally died down. Some people messaged to ask if I'd ever seen Mark again. I didn't reply. Because this wasn't entertainment. This was real life. And in real life, revenge isn't a punchline. It's a scar. But one more thing happened. One evening, I got a call from the lawyer who'd handled Dad's estate. He told me something strange had come up. A safety deposit box, one that hadn't been listed in the documents. Dad had opened it alone, months before his death, and only left a single note inside. I drove to the bank, signed the forms, waited for the vault. Inside the box, just a folded page, yellowed at the edges, in my dad's handwriting. If you're reading this, then you didn't give up. I know Mark twisted things. I wasn't strong enough to stop it, but I never stopped loving you. You were always the better man. I sat in that bank vault and sobbed into my hands. I had chased revenge, and somewhere along the way, I found the one thing I hadn't dared to hope for: redemption. After the safety deposit box, something changed. It wasn't like a switch flipped or the world got brighter. But I started sleeping again, eating properly, laughing at things that didn't have bitterness behind them. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about peace. A few weeks later, I got a Reddit DM. The profile was anonymous. No posts, no karma. Just a username. Coincidental's the message. You think this is over? That was it. No signature. No follow-up. And I'll be honest for a moment. The old panic returned. Was it Mark? Someone connected to him? Someone from the company I'd destroyed? I stared at the message for hours, rereading it, analyzing it. And then I smiled, because I did think it was over. I knew it was. The echo? It wasn't a threat. It was a memory, the final reverberation of a collapsed house. Redstone was gone. Mark was gone. My father was gone. But I was still here. I took time off work, booked a cabin in the mountains. No Wi-Fi, just paper, pens, coffee, and silence. And I wrote everything. From the first betrayal to the final letter. From the boardroom screaming match to the night at the grave. I didn't know if I'd publish it. Maybe it would stay in a drawer forever. But it felt good to put the truth down. Not the Reddit version. Not the filtered post. But my story. All of it. A year passed. One night, I got a call from Emily, my ex-girlfriend. We hadn't talked in years, but she'd seen the viral Reddit thread. I didn't know, she said. I just thought you were angry all the time for no reason. We talked for hours. Not about getting back together. Just about life. About what I'd learned. About how pain twists people into versions of themselves they don't recognize. She told me she was proud of me. I believed her. People still message me sometimes, asking how to get revenge on a sibling, how to expose a company, how to hurt someone who hurt them. I never give instructions, but I do tell them one thing. Whatever you do, make sure you can live with it afterward, because you still have to be someone when the smoke clears. Last fall, I visited my dad's grave again. I brought him a cigar and a photo one I found in an old drawer. It was of me and him at a baseball game when I was 8. He had his arm around me. He was smiling. I buried the photo under a stone beside the grave. It felt like the right place to leave it. Final update posted 1 year after original. Hey, Reddit. It's been a year since I posted my story about my brother Mark. Life's quieter now. I changed jobs, moved cities. I still carry everything that happened not like a wound, but like a scar. I look at it sometimes, but it doesn't bleed anymore. If you're reading this, and you're in the middle of your own storm, just know that it doesn't last forever. Sometimes, you don't win by fighting. Sometimes, you win by surviving. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.